The second Bundesliga is the second tier of German football. Although when you see some of the stadiums you might be second guessing that fact, because as far as second division stadiums go, it's second to none. Hang on a second, I said the word second far too often, didn't I? I second that opinion.
I also second that opinion.
Shut up. Anyway, here are the second Bundesliga 2021-22 stadiums. Erzgebirgsstadion. Tucked into this scenic location at the foot of some hills is a ground that was completely rebuilt just a few years ago. And went from this to, well, you've already seen it. But quite the improvement. I always love to see purple on a stadium, it just looks great. And they've gone with it not just on the exterior but the interior as well. We've got off to a fantastic start. Weserstadion. Another scenic spot, but this time it's right by a river. The Weser River. Ah, like the stadium name. You may have noticed the solar panels on the roof, that's quite common. But the actual facade of the stadium is made from solar panels, or photovoltaic panels in fancy speak. It looks good and provides a ton of energy, very green, as is the interior, which is not quite as technologically advanced, but it looks lovely. So do those floodlights. Max-Morlock-Stadion am Bollenfelder. Another one that's recently undergone some major renovations. It did look like this, very old-fashioned, but it's slowly but surely turned into this. Well, no, it is actually still being worked on as we speak, but it will look like that. A bit of an unrelated side note, but I quite like how a lot of German stadiums seem to be surrounded by, or at least next to, a forest. It's just relaxing. Although thousands of screaming fans tends to change that. Rudolf-Harbig-Stadion. And a very shiny nose by all accounts. Your eyes are not deceiving you, that's a gridiron instead of a football field, because it also occasionally hosts an American football team. That's ironically named the Dresden Monarchs. Although there has been a stadium here since the 1920s, the old one was demolished and this symmetrical single-tier bowl stadium was built in its place a little over a decade ago. It's not full of character, but it certainly gets the job done. Benteler-Arena. The stadium that looks like a furniture megastore, but unlike most furniture megastores, it has a retractable roof. Unbelievably, Fortuna Düsseldorf, the club that plays here, were in the fourth tier of German football when this stadium was built. It must have really given them a shot in the arm because they went on to rise all the way to the Bundesliga before being relegated a couple of years ago. So many colours. Volksparkstadion. Home of Hamburger, the biggest club in Hamburg, unsurprisingly. They have themselves a whopper of a stadium. It's not quite the biggest in the league, but close. The way I'd describe this stadium is raw. That's not a good way to describe a hamburger, by the way. But the facade is made up of exposed concrete and steel. And the interior is just two big tiers of seating with some terracing. Nothing flashy, but not too bad at all. It's basically the Big Mac of stadiums, if my memory serves me correctly. Arena. If you watched the Bundesliga video, you may notice the similarities with Mercedes-Benz Arena, particularly that distinctive railing that supports the roof canopy. And it has a similar history, having been a rounded stadium with a running track, converted into a football-specific stadium. Hence the slightly curved stands behind each goal, but I think I slightly prefer this one. Veltins-Arena. Surrounded by trees and smothered in solar panels, it's quite an eco-friendly stadium, this one. Which is surprising given that Voigt, the sponsor, actually makes paper. So perhaps they are eyeing up those trees. Another aspect of the stadium that I'm a big fan of are the steeper than usual stands, two of which are terraces. Audi Sportpark. It's not just sponsored by Audi, but owned by them. And I've got to say, somehow the stadium reminds me of a sports car. It's very sleek, shiny, stylish, and made from thousands of tons of steel and concrete, just like, actually maybe not. Adding to the vehicular theme, it was built on the site of a former oil refinery. Those floodlights are nice, but what would have been cool, I think you know where I'm going, would be to just chuck some Audis up there on the roof and turn all the lights on. Bank, Vilpark. Yet another one that is currently undergoing a conversion into a rectangular stadium. All but the main grandstand will remain of the old stadium. Although once the new stadium is complete, you won't really be able to notice it. For all intents and purposes, it will be a brand new stadium. A very clean looking bowl stadium. Holstein-Stadion. At nearly 110 years old, it's one of Germany's oldest football stadiums. And it appropriately looks quite traditional. Very British actually. But it hasn't actually looked like this for that long. It needed to be renovated as the team climbed the pyramid. And I keep mentioning it, but it used to be a rounded stadium. Even recently it was looking like this. So it has definitely come a long way. Max-Morlock-Stadion. Straight out of the Time Machine, in more ways than one. Yes, Morlocks are from the novel The Time Machine. But also a German football stadium of this size to have a running track nowadays is quite rare. There are just a few. The stadium is in the shape of not an oval but an elongated octagon, which is also quite rare. I quite like the slanted roof and the stadium as a whole really. Unusual but definitely interesting. Benteler-Arena. On the surface it looks like dozens of stadiums you've seen before. And yeah, that's kinda true. But there are a few features that set it apart a little bit. One thing being that the seating is elevated, so even the front row is a few meters off the ground, which I kinda like in a small stadium like this. Jahnstadion Regensburg.
Hello?
Hey Hans. Yeah, I was just wondering, which exit do I get off at?
Keep driving down the Autobahn for 10 kilometers, you won't miss it.
Are you sure?
Trust me, it is brighter than the sun.
Alright, cheers.
Adios. Auf Wiedersehen.
Hans was right, that bright red exterior acts as a beacon to all the visiting supporters. I love it. The interior is just a clean, simple design, but those floodlights are kinda interesting. Not too dissimilar from Audi Sportpark, but it makes the stand look like a hair comb that's lost one too many prongs. Are they called prongs? Who cares? Stadion. This one seems to be a combination of the last two stadiums, doesn't it? It shares a similar story with many stadiums in this league, slowly being built into a football-specific stadium. I keep saying that, I know, but one thing remains from the old stadium, and that is these distinctive floodlight masts. Well, I guess that's actually 4 things. Man, I keep talking about floodlights as well. I'm sorry, this video has been so repetitive. Maybe it's because of that intro. Stadion am Hartwald. I'm not sure I've seen such an eclectic mix on one side of a stadium before as I have with the northern side of this one. It's a mix of seating and terracing. There also appears to be 3 separate upper decks with individual roofs. Definitely unique. The rest of the stadium is as standard as it gets. Nice to have those trees in the backdrop once again. The repetition continues. Veltins-Arena. Hang on, is that? Yes it is, that's a retractable roof. 2 of them in a second tier league, that's insane. However, even more impressive is that it also has a retractable field, which can slide out of the stadium. This is there because very little sunlight makes its way to the field, especially in winter, so this helps to stay in the natural grass field. The interior looks much better than the exterior in my opinion, and that somewhat translucent roof lets in plenty of light. Oh, and to add to all of that, it's the biggest stadium in the league. Millerntor-Stadion. home of FC St. Pauli, the second biggest club in Hamburg. So if Hamburger is the Big Mac, these guys are the... well, I'm not gonna say the Mac Jr., that's insulting, more like the Quarter Pounder. With cheese though, with cheese. Despite being slowly rebuilt from 2006 onwards, it has still retained a very classic look to it with its brick and glass facade, as well as having 4 individual stands more or less. It just has some modern touches here and there. A very classy stadium to end with. That's it for today's video. If you enjoyed it, then please consider subscribing. Thanks for watching, have a good one.